Welcome into the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Great show today, folks. Jessica Freeberg on her way with Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals in just a bit. First, I had the pleasure to read an amazing book this past weekend. I want to pass it along to you as well. Folks, let me tell you, lately I've been reading quite a few thrillers and quite a bit of crime fiction. This one is an amazing one by two amazing authors that we're going to bring in here in just a bit. Christina Bakerkline and Anneburt have wrote a book. See, I tell you, words is hard today. Please Don't Lie, a thriller, which focuses on a young woman by the name of Hayley Stone, who's seeking a fresh start in the Adirondacks with her new husband, who has experienced a tragedy. They've all experienced a bit of tragedy. We're going to talk about that tragedy in just a moment here. But let me tell you a little bit about our authors, and then we'll jump right into this book. Christina Bakerkline is the #1 New York Times best-selling author of 8 novels, including The Exiles, Orphan Train, and A Piece of the World. She's the recipient of the New England Society Prize for Fiction, the Maine Literary Award, and a Barnes & Noble Discover Prize. Kline has also written and edited 5 nonfiction books. Please Don't Lie is her first thriller. Anneburt's debut novel, The Dig, was an American Booksellers Association Indie Next Pick, the Strand Bookstore's mystery selection for spring of 2023, and the IndieBound.org's Indie Next List lead thrills and chills reading group title for summer of 2024. She's also a nonfiction writer and editor and the past winner of the Meridian Literaries Magazine's Editor's Prize in Fiction. We've got both of them today, which is a huge treat. So I'm pleased to welcome Anneburt and Christina Bakerkline. So ladies, thank you so much for being in here with me, and I apologize for, I wanted to make sure I got both names correct.
Thank you, Tim.
It's been a pleasure to have both of you here today, and a pleasure to be able to talk to both of you about this wonderful book. I want to start it off first by opening it with this salvo, and that's this. You've managed to put together a book where, boy, a trauma. Okay, I want to start with this the opening of trauma here, because there's quite a bit to be spread around, and a lot about family and family loss. And I want to ask each of you, before we jump into the actual subject of the novels itself, and the subject of the characters and their particular loss, is it something that's touched each of you personally? Is that where you're drawing from in order to get this from the characters? Anne, I want to start with you.
Sure. Thank you, Tim. I mean, I feel both as a writer and a human being that stories of family, and all of them always include stories of trauma, whether it's, small or ginormous. It influences generation after generation and action after action. So to write about people who are coming on the heels of trauma into a situation where maybe it's going to cause them to make not the best decisions and lead them into situations that for fiction are really ripe, feels like a naturally human way to approach these characters. We care deeply about these characters, and we want the readers to care about them. And part of that is showing where they come from and, what's been hard for them in this life.
Christina, is there a particular trauma that you drew upon in order to bring that to these particular characters when you got together with Anne?
As Anne was saying so accurately, we've all been through stuff, and the people we care about most in the world, who are our family members, get old and die. My mother died youngish, 73, but it was a shock when it happened. And there's not a day that goes by that, I don't think about what she's missing. And of course, in my extended family, there have been many things that have happened. But I think that what Anne and I decided when we approached the idea of writing a book together was that we wanted to create a central character who was really vulnerable and appealing. I think we fell in love with this woman, Hayley Stone, who is searching for answers through self-help books and therapy and other ways of healing. But the fact that she's in this situation where she's lost her parents, which you know right away at the beginning of the book,
Mhm.
um, and her sister, means that she's very alone. And she's married someone she doesn't know very well. And so I think Anne and I started with this what if question. What if our character is pretty isolated? She's isolated physically. She's in the Adirondacks, in a new house in a town she's never been to until she marries this guy and that he inherits a family home. So she's isolated physically and she's isolated emotionally because he doesn't really have the tools and she doesn't really know what to do with all of her feelings. So
Okay.
that was kind of a great place for us to start.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Christina, thank you also for reminding me to be a little bit more personal too. I don't mind doing that either. I mean, this is something that we share, is that my father died very tragically and very suddenly. He drowned, actually, in a
Oh, geez.
pond when he was going for his regular afternoon swim that he did every day, and he was a very strong swimmer. So, this was 10 years ago, and you can't get over that. It's not
Yeah.
possible. So what do you do when you're a writer? You find ways to examine it from one side or another, again, as we do as people. And as people, we do it by talking to people we love, by therapy, by thinking through, and by, as our character Haley does, seeking some kind of outside source of authority, which she does in these self-help books. And she, as a character, is 30 years old. She's a young adult, but she has just lost all of her touch points, both in her mother, her father, her sister, and her home in New York City that she made as an adult because of all of this trauma, and because she's actually being followed everywhere she goes by podcasters and the internet, because this has become, Tim, you'll be familiar with this, a
Mhm.
sensation of true crime in Haley's world, right? So this is a huge thread in this story. And she thinks, oh gosh, well, maybe a fresh start in a new place where my new husband grew up, a small town in the Adirondacks, where I can get away from all of these traumatic events and people following me. And at first, it seems to work, but only at first.
Yeah.
We'll get to the ambulance chaser podcaster trope in a minute. That'll come up here later in the interview. But before we get to the main plot points of the book here, I do want to ask this, just so we can recap for our audience here, because I know it's in the book, but how did you two come about getting together to write the book? Let's talk about that first, and then we'll get to the book itself.
I can start with that one. So it turned out that Anne and I went to the same college, but we did not know each other. We overlap by a year. I'm a little older. I hate to admit it, but I am. I was doing a book event. My second book had come out, and we had just moved out of New York City into a suburb called Montclair, 10 miles away, essentially. And I was doing a reading at a bookstore, and Anne came up to me and we started talking. And we've basically never stopped talking. We realized that we were both pregnant. We were due within a few weeks of each other. Me with my third, Anne with her first, and we pushed our strollers around. We went to movies together. We started reading books together. We actually joined the same book club, and then we were both in the same writers group. So we've collaborated in our minds for a really long time. And we've collaborated on actual projects as well. We did a book together that was nonfiction a number of years ago. We worked together for 3 months, basically in a writer's room on a Hollywood production that we were invited to do. We brainstormed for a podcast that was where we first had the idea for our thriller. When we finished this assignment for a podcast, we it was accepted. It took us like no time to write an outline that became the outline for this book eventually. And we gave the contract to our agent, and he said, I think you might not want to give this idea away. And they were offering a lot of money, what seemed like a lot of money for an idea. And we were like, well, it took us no time. We could probably do another one. And he said, but this idea is actually really interesting. So he said, I think you could sell it as a book. So we went away and we wrote 3 chapters, and we had an outline that was essentially the length of a Hollywood screenplay, ultimately 120 pages. And we sold the book. in a
Uh-huh.
two-book deal. And that was how it happened. And then we just went off to the races, and that was how it started. What have I left out, Anne?
That was a good story. I liked it.
Hey, Christina, you're pretty succinct about pretty
Trying
much.
to boil it down, but the short answer is we've been friends for a really long time. And we realized fairly early that we connect on a level that we don't with other people in terms of a mind meld. Like we often have the same critical response to things, and we analyze things similarly, and we kind of agree on a it was not hard for us to agree on a voice together. Our voices melded. The voice that we have in Please Don't Lie, the way we tell that story and the way we're doing the next one, isn't just one style or the other style. It's really a seamless combination, and it's just an amazing thing. I've never had that with anybody else, and it just feels very natural. So we feel lucky to have done that together.
Well, it really is one voice. I mean, you don't, if you were writing together, you can't tell that there's one voice or the other pulling one way or the other. I mean, it really is one centralized voice. So,
Yeah, we
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Really appreciate that. One of the things that we get asked the most is this just real curiosity about exactly that. Like, how do you collaborate when you are both, writers with your own pathways, your own voices, and your own strong ways of looking at the world? People are a little like, how is this possible? But for us, part of why it works so well is we never thought it wasn't possible. We heard the obstacles and we heard the people saying, people don't do that, don't do that. We were like, but why? Why would we? We had, in addition to, as Christina said, all of these shared life experiences, we've also had all these shared reading experiences as well. We have been in 2 different book groups together, as well as a writers group together. And so
and still are.
and still are, right. Collectively, we have read hundreds of books together. That's not an exaggeration, and talked through every single one of them. So we really understand each other's thinking, and even more than understanding it, get this like incredible joy from building off of each other. Like we talk about the concept of yes and in our writing all the time, which is from improv, right? From theater. If you're up there on the stage and somebody says something, I'm driving a car on the moon, you have to say yes and. You can't just say, oh, I don't like that. So for us, that's what generates what otherwise neither of us might come to alone, because our own minds do what they do. But I just feel grateful and lucky to have this incredible creative partner and access to Christina's thoughts and ideas, and to be able to build off of them. And I want to do my best work because I really want Christina, who is now my first reader, to really enjoy that back and forth and to get, excited by it too.
so
We're
Anne,
always trying to impress each other. I just wanted to jump in and say that. Like, I think part of the reason the partnership works is that we both want to show each other that we're equally in. So we're, like right now we're doing a ton of articles and Q&As and essays and stuff. And we're like, I'll do the first draft. We really want to prove that we're in this together, but also I really want to impress. I don't want to let Anne down. I don't want her to read what I hand her and be like, oh my God, that's terrible. By the way, I just want to also say one last thing about Yes And, which is that Anne is starting a Substack that I think is launching in a few days, that you can find her name, anneburt, at Substack, and it's called Yes And. So it's kind of great.
oh, great. Okay. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I was going to say, I was just going to ask Anne, is there a part in the writing process, especially when you're doing dialogue, where you throw back and forth and write dialogue, or does one person write dialogue and then throw to the other and they go, well, and then I add to this? Is it much the back and forth,
Both.
or is it a
Yeah.
collaborative?
It's both. It's both. It depends. So we do part of our process because, we're not always in the same place at the same time. So naturally, part of it is we trade off. Sometimes I'm like, okay, it's my turn to write the first draft of this dialogue, and I'll pitch it to Christina. Sometimes it's Christina's turn to write the first draft and she pitches it to me. But we always do it with the shared assumption, like, this is a blueprint. And this is basically, we are creating a playground for us to muck around in together. And it's always that. The other way that we work is that when we're in the same place at the same time, which we try to be as often as possible, we both live in New York. We live 6 blocks away from each other, and we
Wow.
work in one or the other's apartments, at each other's tables, kitchen tables with our
All day long.
computers all day long. We read these dialogue scenes out loud, either each taking a role or one to the other. And we're always going, wait, hold on. What about this? Wait, does that work? I don't know. Let's do that. To the point where by the end of the book, we genuinely don't remember anymore who came up with which piece of it, because both of us have had our hands on every line.
And we read the book. This book, I think we read out loud, and Anne has a great reading voice, like a professional level reading voice. So she's usually the one who reads it out loud. But I think 3 times we read this book out loud. So, on top of all the going over and finessing, it's not until you're reading it out loud, or for us together, that we catch some little things, and the pacing, dialogue was really important to us. We wanted it to feel like you were watching it, basically,
Yeah.
seeing them in action. So we did really play those roles for each other.
Well, Christina, it does feel like you're watching it. I mean, it does feel like it's splayed out on the screen for you, and it does feel very natural. It feels like you're going from scene to scene to scene, and you can see it almost before you read it, right?
Yeah, we
That,
wanted that feeling of like just propellant, and like you're watching them have this experience.
right, right. It definitely feels like that. Tell you what, we'll take our break here. When we come back, I want to jump into the plot, and much like you say, you and Anne throw back and forth for dialogue. There's very much relationships in this book that are thrown back and forth between our main character and her husband, her main character and some people who come along. The main character and her best friend Emily, for example,
Yes.
is a good example of thrown back and forth. But we'll talk about some of these relationships in the book and exactly where these tragedies come up, because tragedy mirrors tragedy in this book. There's a lot of tragedies that mirror each other, that come up against each other. And it seems like everyone's got their set agendas, and these agendas keep coming up against each other. It's a very interesting book. It's called Please Don't Lie, a thriller. Christina Baker Kline and Anneburt. See, I was trying to put your names together because
I know, I like you, the
right?
meld.
Yeah, I tried to make you like Bennifer. I tried to make you one name there, but Christina Baker Kline and Anneburt are the authors of this wonderful book. Please Don't Lie, a thriller. We have a link in the description of this program right now. Go get the book. When we come back, more with Christina and Anne. We'll talk about these characters, not only how they come up against each other, but what they have in common, and whether there's a common goal. We'll talk about that as well. It's coming up next, right here on the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. Welcome back to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Christina Baker Kline and Anneburt are with me. They're the authors of this wonderful new book that is out. It's not out yet. It's a pre-sale, so it's out next week. It is called Please Don't Lie, a thriller. And we have the pre-order link in the description of this program. I want to make sure I'm clear about that. It comes out next week, but we want you to pre-order. Pre-order, please, because I've got a sneak peek at that book. That's not a word. Sneak peek at that book. And by gosh, it is so good. So good. I want you to be able to go pre-order that book and go read that book. By the way, I know the ending and I'm not giving it away. I never do on this show. Never do. But we are going to preview it for you here with Christina and Anne. So let's do that. We've done so a little bit already, and I want to start with Christina here. We've talked a little bit about Hayley, but I want you to go a little bit more into Hayley and a little bit about her family life first. We've talked a little bit about that trauma.
Yes.
When Hayley first appears to us, she's a damaged person, and she's had as you've mentioned, a bit of family trauma. But let's get a little bit more into her mother, her father, and she's had a sister that's passed as well, right?
Yes. So our character, Hayley, grew up in Florida, and in a sort of conventional family that had its own secrets and own things that they hid away. And her sister was a bit troubled, younger sister, and Hayley felt really responsible for her. And then when the parents die in a tragic fire, and the sister apparently kills herself. Hayley is alone. She lives in New York City, where she has found sustenance and sort of made a life that she really loves. But she connects with this man whom she meets in Florida, and he doesn't love the city the way she does. So Anne and I, as we created this character and this story, we wanted to sort of stack the deck against someone who is good-hearted and well-meaning, but also feels some guilt and has some lingering unresolved feelings about her family and what happened. And we also wanted to sort of slowly reveal, as the book goes on, more details about it, as Hayley kind of progresses deeper into her present day story, which is that she's trying to make friends and she's in this new place and everything feels strange, and her husband suddenly starts acting in ways that she didn't anticipate, a little bit squirrely, a little bit secretive, a little bit short-tempered sometimes, a little jealous. And so she's very much thrown off her game, and she just is not quite sure where to turn. And so she turns to self-help books to try to understand herself. And we love the genre of self-help books. I mean, they've helped us for one thing, but also there's a spectrum, and some can be very helpful and some can be kind of quackery on the other
Yeah,
end.
sure.
So it was really interesting to explore that and to look at how Hayley both benefited and also sometimes perhaps became vulnerable because of some of the advice she was receiving both in person and in books. And what have I left out?
Well, and we'll get to some of the minutia of that too, because there's some interesting minutia in the book that I found particularly interesting. But I want to I want to ask a little bit about the self-help books, which is kind of it's fun. Let's face it. You brought about the quackery about it too. Um, let's pull on your history of that for a second. Are there particular self-help books that you looked at and just kind of cringed, or there's some that you've actually used that you swear by?
Well, we actually made up every one of the self-help books that Haley turned.
Really,
Yep,
really.
they're all some of the most fun that Christina and I had, in fact, writing this book was making up these self-help books because they all had to have kind of a double purpose in the
Right.
book, right? First of all, they had to resonate for real with Haley. They had to mean something to her. Actually, a triple purpose. They had to resonate with Haley. They also had to comment on the story and the bigger picture of the story in some way. And the third piece, because it's a thriller, they actually had to move the plot forward in a
Yeah.
way that accumulates over the course of the book. So that was like one of the most fun, entertaining, and challenging intellectual exercises we did because as we wrote the book, we sometimes had one trajectory in mind, and even though we had this very extensive outline in place that Christina referred to, things change in the writing as the characters become more and more alive. Of course, they tell you what they need. And some of the original self-help that we wrote for Hayley didn't apply to the final Hayley in the book anymore. One example is our first few drafts of Hayley. She was more sort of a victim of her circumstances. She was a little passive. And you could understand why because of all of this trauma. But as we pushed forward in the book, Hayley started to push back to us. And she said, I need to be more active. I need to be more proactive. And so we dug further into Hayley's innate intelligence and into her desire to take control of her own life. And then that changed some of the ideas for our imaginary self-help gurus that she had to be following and caring about at different points in the book. So it was a really fascinating exercise for us.
The reason I ask this is this. Okay, so the other part of the show is a paranormal show, and I've run into plenty of people who have written these books. Now, interestingly enough, I mean, I'm sure you know who Rainn Wilson is from The Office.
Of course.
He wrote a parody character that he's featured. That's kind of like the old Art Bell, who he parodies a broadcaster, a paranormal broadcaster. But part of that is getting into that character, and then he wrote a book in that character. So my thought is, have you ever thought about writing, now that you mention that, have you ever thought about writing one of these self-help books, but in parody?
We kind of did. I mean, in this book, we were on the verge of parody, as Anne was saying. I mean, and we love that whole world. Our next novel, our next thriller together is a trad wife thriller. And that world of influencers and people who are on YouTube all the time and monetizing their lifestyles is not so far off from this whole other enterprise of self-help. In fact, it's very wedded together. So Anne and I have a fascination with all of that stuff, and we're going to be exploring it much more in the next book.
Boy, Christina, you are hitting me where I live today. Holy cow. All right. Well, we're good. We're about 2 minutes away from getting to it anyways, but between YouTube and the podcaster stuff. But we'll get to the antagonist stuff in a second. But so there's different areas where, like Anne, you pointed out where Hayley's being pushed. One that's subtle, I guess, in a way, is her friend Emily. So as she takes off to this new adventure with her husband Brandon, she's realizing that, okay, I need to change the way I'm living, because she's living in New York City. She's living kind of fast. She's living a city lifestyle that she loves. Let's face it, she loves it. But she needs to change a little bit because Brandon's really a Florida, I don't want to say backwoods type of guy, but he's almost typical Florida man, right? But he wants to move back to the East Coast and live an outdoors type life. That's not Hayley, right? So really, Brandon's kind of an antagonist because he's kind of pushing Hayley to a different lifestyle. Well, Emily's kind of reminding Hayley that that's not really you. So she's kind of an antagonist. So she's getting soft antagonism from even the ones that love her, right?
Yeah, no, that's right. Emily is a really important character in this book. Emily met Hayley when they were both first-year students in college at NYU, and Emily's a native New Yorker. So at the point when the book starts, because of Hayley's family loss, Emily is the person who's known her the longest and the best. And her role is to be a kind of a truth teller for Hayley and a voice for the reader in a lot of situations, because Emily's like, wait a minute, girlfriend.
What's going on?
What are you doing? Which we know, readers of thrillers are super smart, super engaged, and we love the interaction that they have and that we have when we read thrillers, because we're the same way. We're fans when we read the thrillers of like, okay, what is she doing? Why is she doing it? Why is she walking into what clearly seems to be a trap? Wait, or is it? Like, am I reading it right? Am I not? So Emily is like that voice for Hayley and for the reader of like, uh-oh, be careful, be careful. So her role is significant in this book.
Okay.
I will say let me just add to that one of the sort of surprising or one of the interesting things about switching genres, about writing a book in this genre, is that the readership is very different. And many people read thrillers to sort of see if they can figure it out. Like, so that there's a whole thing about like, when did you figure out that this happened or that happened? And I can see people kind of chatting about that online, and that's not at all the way people read my other books, to like gotcha on the plot. It's just a really different process. So it's fascinating.
What is it, Christina, about writing a thriller to you that I don't want to say more fun, but what is it about writing a thriller that challenges you in different ways?
Oh my gosh. Anne and I have been itching to do this for a long time, because when you write literary fiction or historical, as I do, there's so much research, and it's, it's about, a lot of it is about language and the sort of pacing of language in a very different way. Writing a book where you're twisting and turning through a plot at such speed and at such intensity, and where the stakes are very high, life or death, always in our thrillers that we're working on, is just a very different experience. And so it is fun in a different way. Not to mention the fact, of course, that writing a book with someone else is very fun, especially because for the two of us, in our own experience, we've just loved sharing that solitary process, what is often and usually and almost always a solitary process. It's amazing to have someone else to be back and forth with about every little word. Someone who cares as much as you do about the words on the page.
Yeah, it's kind of co-parenting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like co-parenting, right? It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about your kids as much as you parents do.
Right. Can you believe what this, can you believe it? Can you believe it? Like we say that about our characters all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on, right on. So one of the other antagonists, and we should we should understand maybe I have a little bit of a sympathy for this character. Would be Olivia, who's the podcaster who seems to be it's been described as a troll. Um, but the innocent podcaster who's just trying to do her job. I
We love her.
I kind of laughed a little bit at the depiction. But the reason I laugh is because I understand why you have to paint her the way you have to paint her. Although I think her salary is grossly
Hey, it's our world. She
I
just
know,
lives
I
in it.
know.
No,
But
I
God,
mean, we
if I could
love
make
this
if I could
guy.
make that salary, I'd do it in a minute. Uh, I digress. I just want to make her salary. That's all. Um, but with her, it's the understanding is that with what happened with Hayley, of course, there's tragedies that have happened there, and of course, Olivia is pushing and pushing because one, not only does she want to get this story, but two, it seems like not only her but other podcasters involved here, at least in this world, have become the new paparazzi. Is that fair to say?
That's exactly right. That's how we were looking at it, that she is paparazzi. And in a lot of ways, this is a tale of how small communities can be, no matter how large the palette is, right? So the town in Florida where these tragedies happened, it was fodder for so much gossip. So much gossip. And Olivia Blackwood, our podcaster, starts her career in that town. So this is in our book, this is a story that actually makes Olivia's career in a lot of ways. And so she's going to lean into what people want. But on the other end of it, Hayley has a very different set of wants and needs, and she wants and needs to get away from it. And she feels like that's impossible because the paparazzi goes online. And so you can't run no matter where you are. So, it's a small town event that maybe 50 years ago would have not made national coverage. But because of the spread of the internet, because of the way things go, and something can just blow up overnight, as we all know, that's what's happened to Hayley. And that's what we were really interested in exploring in terms of where do you go when you can't hide.
And to be fair, with your depiction, there's a lot of shows out there that will grab any guest, throw them on, and report it. And then there's other shows that want to be the guest, and they will throw their own opinions out there, much like your depiction of Olivia, that want to be the name and put themselves forward
That's right.
and want to be the source of information and be the star.
I mean, without giving away any spoilers, because of course that's important, Olivia gets her moment in this book to, say her piece too. And she's a great character.
Yeah.
She's a
absolutely.
complex character too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I didn't say much about her. But it's an interesting depiction, nonetheless. Although I am interested in the YouTube Tried Wife book as well.
Well, that's coming out February 2027. Is that right?
Oh,
I think
January.
December.
Oh no, you're right. You're right. December 2026. So that's exactly right. December 2026.
Yes.
And it's set in Crystal River, the same small Adirondack mountain town that Hayley moves to
Yes.
in Please Don't Lie.
okay, interesting.
And again, we can't say anything about who's in that book because it would be spoilers for Please Don't Lie, but there are characters that recur.
Okay, good. How much can we talk about Megan and Tyler?
Plenty.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Christina, you want to lead that because it seems like well, you know what? Let's talk about Brandon first. I want to talk about Brandon first, and then we'll lead into Megan and Tyler. Because obviously Hayley meets Brandon, and why don't you first, Christina, talk about how Hayley meets Brandon, and we'll go from there and talk about Brandon a little bit.
Brandon is a contractor who works in the community that the gated community that Hayley's wealthy parents lived in. And he's charming, a little rough around the edges, but Anne and I imagined him as just charismatic, but not oily, actually like a decent seeming guy, and who, unlike anyone that Hayley had talked to, was able to sort of make her feel taken care of, and cared for and loved, um, in a way that was freeing to her. And but he moved to New York City and she saw a different side of him. He was unhappy, as I said, being there. He was a fish out of water. He really wanted the kind of world he had grown up in and the world he lived in Florida, which is where he could have he could do his carpentry projects and he could build things and he could have a life that involved the outdoors. And Hayley had never really lived that way and didn't know that she wanted to. But when Brandon inherits his father's house, the house his father, an architect, built, a glass house in Crystal River, on the outskirts of Crystal River, Hayley's willing to make a go with him because really she loves him. And that is what it is. So I think Brandon represents safety for her. But Crystal River is, again, an uncertain place. When Hayley meets these two charismatic, like interesting, beautiful people, she sees them talking in a hardware store and then she sort of manages to talk to the woman. She realizes instantly that they might be the friends that she and Brandon are lacking in town. I'll let Anne continue, but that's that, I think.
Yeah. I mean, Tyler and Megan, who are a couple, are really the two other main characters in the main part of this book, along with Brandon and Hayley. So everything that we've been talking about with Hayley's backstory and Brandon's backstory leads them to Crystal River and to this friendship. And the four main characters end up living on the same property. Tyler and Megan move into the guest cottage, which is sitting empty on the property, and the four of them really do build on this friendship. And again, like with Emily, you see contrasts with Tyler and Megan to Brandon and Hayley. And it's Hayley finds a desire that she didn't know that she felt, to be a freer spirit through her friendship with Megan, and seeing Megan and Tyler, who feel like they have a more unconventional relationship than she and Brandon have. So it really opens up worlds for Hayley in this book.
And that's kind of where Hayley sees that maybe there's some differences there between what she gets from Brandon and what she gets from this side that she sees with Tyler and Megan.
Definitely. And one of the fun things about writing this book is that every scene is essentially a conflict. I mean, every scene, there's somebody who's out of whack a little bit. And so the dialogue is all quite contentious, but under the surface, Hayley is never quite has her equilibrium. She's always trying to figure out where she fits in the world. And these people seem to have some answers that she doesn't have. Her husband, Megan, are strong personalities. All the people in this book have strong personalities, and even some of the all the minor characters, actually. Cheryl, who is a local woman who has a stand at the farmer's market and has very strong opinions. Emily, we talked about, who is a big personality. So Hayley's just trying to make her way. She's probably the one in the book who does not have a strong point of view necessarily. She's a seeker. And so in a way, she's a stand-in for the reader. She's navigating her way through all of these people who have secrets and stories that she doesn't quite understand.
Can we strike one last match here, Christina, with Cheryl, that just say that she has a secret about Brandon that turns everybody's world around?
Yes, there are several pivotal moments in our novel where something turns the story on its head, and one of them involves Cheryl. And actually, because we're staying in Crystal River for our next book, we have even more secrets coming out that are revolving around Cheryl's backstory. So we're having a blast, kind of taking what we built in the first book and constructing even more in the second book, because Cheryl's such a wonderful character. We could not
Yeah.
let go of that kind of world that she lives in and that she built in Crystal River.
Yeah, she was really intriguing, really an interesting character. Yeah, yeah, I enjoyed her particularly. Yeah.
We loved writing her. You know, it's funny, in a book like this, you're able to really give strong personalities to your secondary characters. And we just had a blast doing that all the way through, picking people who were quirky and strange and interesting, and threw off our Hayley, our poor Hayley, having to deal with all these complicated people.
Yeah, yeah. And again, folks, without giving too much away, it's that catalyst that gets things going. And once the dominoes start to fall, they fall very quickly. And boy, they get splayed all over the place. And when you think you know somebody, you don't. That's what the wonderful thing about Please Don't Lie, a thriller. So
I would say that's the theme of the book. If there's a theme, it's you really don't know. When you think you know people, maybe you don't.
and it's,
Yes.
it's appropriately titled, right? I mean, it seems like one character is turning to another and just saying, "Please don't lie. Please just
We
please."
do have a character literally say that in the book too.
Yeah. Which is it's those, you know, but really in life, I think you want to turn to somebody and just tell them, "Please don't lie." It's that person that you want to trust the most, right? That you know they probably have a secret, and you just don't want that secret to hurt somebody, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember who had the saying. It's who had the saying? I was just watching it the other day. They said, "Love is like handing somebody a box of weapons, and it's them holding those weapons and not using it against you." That's what love is. That is being able
That's,
to hold that box of weapons and not having them use it against you.
that is so dark. We might have to steal it from you.
Yeah. And that's essentially what love is the ability for them to hold that box of weapons and not use it against you. I thought that was so poignant, right? I mean,
It's amazing.
because you
Amazing.
could
Love it.
you could do that. You could do that.
Yes.
That's
And
the opposite,
actually,
the
that's
opposite
what
of
our book is
Forrest
about.
Gump. Right, the opposite of Forrest Gump. Life is not a box of chocolates, it's a box
No.
of weapons.
Box of weapons. And you know, because essentially you've splayed open your heart, you hold them a box or hand them a box of weapons and say, "Please don't use that against me."
Mm.
Good. That's good, Tim. We
Yeah.
love it.
And I got chills when I heard that. I thought, and it's not my quote. I don't remember who I heard it from, but I thought, whoa, that I mean, I get chills saying it. It just because it is. You leave yourself completely and totally vulnerable. And you're hoping that that person is moral enough and loves you enough that they won't take a weapon out of that box and go, "You know what? We're done." You know?
This is true.
True.
Yeah. And I think that's what a good thriller has in it is just one person saying, "You know what? We're done." Yeah.
And in a thriller, when you're done, it means you're done.
Yeah, you're toast. You're done. You're toast.
You're toast. You're toast. Exactly.
Well, someone's toast in this book. So, but you have to get the book and you have to click on that link in the description of this program to find out who's toast, because we're not going to tell you. Well, Christina and Ann, I want to thank you so much for being on the program. Again, Please Don't Lie, a thriller is available next week, and we have that link in the description so people can go get it. So I want to thank you.
Thank you, Tim. It was
Thank you.
great talking with you.
This was really fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Christina Baker-Kline and anneburt are with us again, folks. Please Don't Lie, a thriller is available next week. And we have the link in the description of this program, so you can go get it. Folks, we're going to lighten things up a little bit. It's time now to bring in Jessica Freeberg, and it's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals.
The second part of this program is in a separate video. We apologize for the inconvenience. For more audio and video archives of True Crime Tuesday, intriguing content, fun events, and cool swag, check out darknessradioshow.com. For the next segment, Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals, click the link to the next show. Thank you for watching.